Thank you so much for joining me for today's Clubhouse. I am so happy that you're here. I really feel like that this is a time for us to kind of get together and regroup and talk about what we all love and kind of get our minds off of what's going on in the world today, because there's certainly a lot of changes every day. So I appreciate you, and I want you to know that. One of the pains that we've had here in the shop is that we don't have the opportunity to see all of our customers that we enjoy, that light up our day, that come in and make us smile. And we appreciate all of the internet orders. It's helped us going. It's helped our employees stay busy, and we sincerely appreciate your support in that way. At the same time, we miss you. We miss seeing your smiling face. We miss seeing you around. So I really appreciate you joining me here today. So. Yes, I would love to know who's here.
So we got Peggy from Alabama.
Hey, Peggy.
We got Janet.
Janet.
Lori is here from Michigan.
Hi, Lori in Michigan.
And Diane Palmerton from
Hey.
Manchester.
Hey, Diane. Good to see everybody. So we're in the April meeting. We're in the April meeting. And so in the March meeting, I was actually on a cruise ship with a few of our viewers here on the Clubhouse, and we pieced some quilts together, and we also looked at ruler work on a sit-down domestic machine, so we had a great time together. And so I haven't been with you live then since the February meeting, so it's nice to see everybody, and I'm so glad that people are joining us today. And if you would just put what state you're in, I think it's one of those things where we are all a part of the quilting community, and it's nice to see how far and wide our viewers come from as we gather together to enjoy one of our favorite topics.
We got more people coming in.
Oh, good.
We got Rosemary.
Rosemary.
And Candy from Colorado.
Candy from Colorado. I love Colorado.
Yeah, and then Kelly saying hi.
Hi, Kelly.
And then Mary says hi from Nebraska.
Hi, Mary in Nebraska. Good to see everybody. So I want to tell you about some things going on. First of all, I want you to know about us here and how we are keeping our employees safe here, and how we're honoring your orders that come in. So we are a small woman-powered company, and we have one employee at the shop working now. Others are all at home. All of the internet orders are being fulfilled by that person who's here each day, and they are working in isolation so that we can keep everybody safe and healthy, and everybody's families safe and healthy. We are still trying our very best to get your orders shipped out within 24 hours, and we are meeting that expectation most of the time. So that is certainly a little more difficult when there's only one person working, but we're doing our very best, and all of your orders have really helped lift our spirits to know that we're still filling a need, and that you are at home quilting, and you are enjoying your time at home, hopefully, and staying healthy yourself, and we're helping to get you the supplies that you need to continue quilting at home. So thank you. I want to be sure that you are signed up for our Quilted Joy newsletter. So any specials, any news, any classes, any online events, even the topics that we talk about here on the Clubhouse, that's all covered in our newsletter. So if you sign up for our newsletter, then you'll get all of the updated information, and you can connect with us through that newsletter. So do make sure that you're signed up, because I think you'll appreciate it. We also, I don't know if you've noticed if you get the newsletter, but at the end of the newsletter, we include a fun little link pack. And so the latest pack, there was a link in there about a quilt, an antique quilt. I don't know if you guys have ever accidentally sewn something into your quilt, or sewn some scissors or something into your quilt. Well, this had a pistol that was sewn into it. So it was a vintage quilt. It was her grandmother's quilt, and she took it to get repaired, and they found a small pistol that had been sewn into it, I guess, middle of the night, just in case. You got your seam ripper and open it up, and there you got your pistol ready to go. But anyway, we try to put little fun links in there in each newsletter to kind of give you a smile each time. So do sign up for that. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you is that we have a virtual roadshow coming up. So We are an APQS dealer, and we sell the APQS long arm machines. And normally we have different events in the shop specifically for folks who are in the market for a long arm machine. It's just an educational event where we can go through the machines and kind of show you the features and drill down and figure out what you want to get in a machine and what questions you have for long arm machine quilting. And so we had an event scheduled here next week in the shop, and that's not going to happen. So we've moved it online, and I would love for you, if you are in the market for a long arm machine or looking for more information about a long arm machine, to join us virtually. And we'll have it kind of set up like this, where we'll send you a link, and it's a private link to let you in, and then you can ask questions, you can get more information, and we'll go through all the different machines. You won't be able to test drive it, yes, but we'll go through so you can kind of figure out which one of the makes and models is the one that suits you best. So if you know someone who is in the market for a long arm machine, please do let them know about this, because I think they would find it helpful, and I know there's some information in there that they would find useful. Like I said, it's specifically designed for folks who are in the market, who are considering the purchase of a long arm machine. So I would love it if you'd register or if you'd share this information with someone that you know. And by the way, truly the best gift that you could give to me to show appreciation for the time and effort that we put into bringing this to you each month would just be to share it with someone. Is there someone you know who's interested in machine quilting, whether it be sit down or stand up? Let them know that we're here. Let them know that we do this, and share the clubhouse meeting with them, because I think they'll find it interesting. So that's truly the best thanks that you can give us, is to share this clubhouse meeting with someone else. So thank you. I did want to tell you too, we have gotten in all kinds of new wide back fabrics. So wide backs meaning they are 108-inch wide. Some are 112-inch wide, and we have some muslins that are like 120-inch wide. So these are perfect for the backing fabrics on your quilts. And I would say most of the time, if you're looking for a backing fabric and you like it, but you don't have a quilt in mind for it, a 3-yard cut is probably the way to go about it, so that you have enough for the quilt that crosses your path when you're ready to use that yardage. So it's 10% off all of our fabric right now, and you have to use that code SPRING10, all capital letters, and that is good until Friday, April the 3rd. So you're getting a jump on the information here while we talk. And then I did want to point out that we have started offering swatches of all of our fabric. So I think, Kelsey, are we up to like 145? Yeah. It's a lot of bolts of fabric. I don't remember buying that many bolts of fabric, but apparently I've bought that many bolts of fabric. And so we've now started offering swatches so that you can order just a little piece of it and then check the colors and make sure it's what you like and that it feels the way you like, and then you could go ahead and order that yardage. So if you go on our website, you'll see now we have swatches available that you can order for all of our fabrics, and then of course all of our fabrics are 10% off. So Spring 10. Okay, so last meeting, we talked about different spines, the different types of spines that you can use for your quilted feathers. And I hope you found that helpful, and I hope you found that interesting. What I want to talk today is how to put feathers on the outside of a curling spine. So many times if you go to a class, they'll teach you initially how to make feathers on a straight spine, but generally in a quilt, that's kind of a rare bird. You're just not going to find that very often. Generally, the feathers are on some kind of curve. So let's look at how we put feathers on the outside of a curve. And I'll let you guess what we're going to talk about next month, okay? But today we're going to talk about the outside of a curve. All right, so I've got my drawing pad here set up on my computer, and I'm hoping that you have a pen and some paper at home, and you can kind of play along with me. And the first thing I want to do is just make my spine, and I'm going to make a question mark spine. So just the question mark you've been making all your life, just that kind of question mark spine. And what I want to talk about is how you determine how to get feathers to operate on the outside of that curve. I'm going to just move this down a little bit so that you can see it a little bit better. And so what we have to talk about is how far out will these feathers reach on this outside of the curve. And you want them balanced, right? Because you're going to have feathers on the inside of the curve too. So one of the things to think about is find the bullseye. So find the center of your clock face. Find the center of your circle. So see how this curve, you can imagine a clock face here. You could imagine a bullseye. You can imagine a circle. So kind of find the center of that and look at how far of a distance it is to the center of that clock face, of that bullseye, of that circle. And that's about how far out those feathers would likely come as they arc around the outside of that curve, so that things are balanced. So we've come down here, and I'm going to start making feathers going up this. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about fanning feathers. And so I'm going to make my first plume. It's like a half of a teardrop. And I'm going to actually do some curled feathers. So those are just kind of easier for me. So it comes in, it curls back along the curl, and then you kick out and come back down and really tuck in your tail. So curl and come back down. And the reason I like these curled feathers is that they're just more forgiving. I don't have a lot of backtracking. And of course, I always say I can draw better than I can quilt. And if you have any questions specific to feathers, now feathers is a giant topic, but go ahead and put your comments, put your questions in there. So I want you to notice, as I make these feathers going up the outside of this curve, I tuck my tail way in. Now, one of my quilting heroes, Karen McTavish, when she talks about feathers, she always says, now think skinny thoughts. And I love that, because you do want to watch out that your feathers don't become like bratwurst, right? I should have brought it in. I have my very first quilt I ever put feathers on, and they look like bratwurst. So think skinny thoughts. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to curl, come back, and then kick out. And really trace back down the spine. And so if I don't curl right on top, if I don't backtrack right on top of the curl, there is forgiveness in there. So I'm going to come on here, curl, and come on down. So really trace back along the spine and get your curls to wrap around. And that way, when we go and talk about the inside now, it'll have a balanced feeling because you have the same amount on one side that you do on the other. Another option for making feathers, another way to approach it, would be stacking feathers. So let's talk about stacking feathers. So I'm going to make my little question mark curl, and I'm going to start to stack feathers. So I'm going to start out with my same type of feather. And by the way, there are, I would probably say hundreds of different types of feathers. So don't think that you have to make an Amish traditional feather. You do not. There are all kinds of feathers. And so I want you to find your happy place, your feather, because it's likely not the traditional over-the-top Amish feather, because those are really the hardest ones to make. So to stack a feather, I'm going to start out with a small little baby one. So there's my little baby. And the mama's going to kind of scoop around him. And then I'm going to grow the feathers outside and stack those. So a little baby and a little mama. And then another baby and that mama. And now I'm going to keep on. So this is stacking feathers. And so if you can imagine if I had a large space and I wanted to make these individual plumes, I might start to come up with those bratwurst feathers that we kind of cautioned you about before. So stacking feathers is a good way to fill space until you reach the outside of that curve, or the end of the curve, I should say. I'm going to make them just a little shorter here. Ooh, I hit the button on my little pin and moved it. Okay, so so that's one way to stack feathers on the outside of a curve. So let's look at it here on the machine. So I have my Millennium here set up, and I'm going to make that question mark curl that we just did. And then I'm going to start out and build those feathers. Kelsey, is it okay if I keep it on stitch regulation mode, or it is? Okay. Sometimes we put it on manual mode just to help with the camera that we have attached to the handles. So I'm going to put that first plume, curl, and kick out. Curl, and kick out. Curl, and kick out. Curl, and kick out. So I'm going on the outside of that curve, and I'm trying to keep them about the same size as that bullseye. If I were to put the center of my clock face, the center of my circle, the center of my bullseye is about right here. So this distance from the center to the spine is about how much space I need to fill on the opposite side to create a balanced spine. And then I'm just going to do one last one, and there we go. All right, so I would normally, you can either go around the outside, or you could break your threads, you could travel down the spine and do the inside of the curve, but I'm going to go ahead and just break my thread here so that you can better see what we just did. So there's that curled feather. Okay, so let's do one more, and let's do one that stacks, because those I would call like a fan. Let's do a stacking one. So I make my little question mark. Now it's a given that we have been talking about the question mark in the way that you would normally draw a question mark, but you're going to have to get used to drawing your curves in the opposite direction too. So as a long arm quilter, of course our sit-down machine quilters, excuse me, they can turn the fabric, but we have to be able to draw them upside down, right side up. All right, I'm going to put a little baby, little mama, little baby, little mama. And there's not enough room here to really stack out 4, so I'm just stacking out 2 at a time. But the idea is you make a little one, and then you have a big one kind of spoon around it. Let's see if we can make a big one here. So there's one. So he got a little generous, didn't he? But if you are struggling with feathers, this curled feather is a great option. All right, I'm going to go ahead and break my threads. And this is one of those you just have to doodle, and let the flow start to happen. You're not going to be able to create feathers like this right out the box. You are going to have a little bit of practice. So there you go. Do we have any questions, Kelsey, about feathers? Okay. All right. So that was feathers on the outside of a curve, and I'm guessing that you can guess what we are going to talk about next month. Yeah. All right, I want to thank our sponsor, APQS. APQS machines are 100% handcrafted in Iowa, and they're loved the world over, and they come with a lifetime warranty. So quilt easier and quilt inspired with APQS. And then I encourage you, if you are interested in APQS machines, to join us for that online roadshow that we're going to have, the APQS roadshow we're going to have on April the 11th, and that will be live, and you will have the opportunity to ask questions as well as listen to other people's questions. And you can find a link in the bottom of the screen as well as in the description of how to sign up for that. And that'll be a live event just like this on the internet, and you'll have a private link to go to see that. Okay, so we are going to talk to, we're going to be nosy, and we're going to look at our Looky Loo tour. And that is with Diane Palmerton. And she was gracious enough to let us kind of poke around in her studio and see how she has things up. So let's talk to Diane. All right, we are joined today by Diane Palmerton. Thank you so much for joining us, Diane. I really appreciate you taking the time to give us a tour.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and where are you located, Diane?
I'm in Winchester, Kentucky.
Awesome. Okay.
Just a little southeast of Lexington.
Perfect. All right. And so are you in the basement? Are you in an extra bedroom? Where's your studio at?
I am on the top floor. That's why I call it my quilter's nest.
Oh, fabulous. All right. Well, if you would turn the camera around so we can be a little nosy. I see you've got pegboard there behind you. So you've got rulers hanging on the wall.
I'm trying to find that button that, yeah.
All right. So you even have a TV up there.
Yeah, I mainly listen to music on it. I have, let me get over here and kind of pan around.
Yeah, show me the whole space. Great.
It's
So
not
you
a
have
big space, but it works for me.
Wonderful. So you have your rulers up there on pegboard on the wall. You've got an elevated table for cutting. Do you have that like up on, oh, you've got it up on those PVC pipes so that it'll be up in the air. Great. And then you've got your piecing machine with a smaller iron. But I want to know what's hanging on that door. You've got like pockets.
I do. It's a shoe rack.
It's a shoe rack. And what do you keep in there?
And I put my threads on it.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm still collecting threads. When I first started, I was getting all signature threads, and I've got a bunch of that now that I don't use. And so I'm now trying to expand and get a better collection of glide and so fine.
Awesome. All right. And you've got, tell me what's going on. You've got something framed up there on the wall. It was to the right of the thread. It was up there on the wall. Is that like, what is that? Because that's beautiful.
Well, I bought it at a yard sale.
Is it a actual fabric?
It's a pattern. It's just a picture that somebody has painted, and I found it and I said, that looks like a quilt block.
Yeah.
Orange peel quilt block.
Yeah. And it was just a yard sale. That's great.
Yeah. I love it.
So you've got some photos there to keep you happy.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice.
And
all right.
Books.
And so where do you keep like your pantographs?
I don't have pantographs.
You don't?
No.
All right. Where do you keep your batting?
Well, I've got some batting under the long arm.
Oh, I see.
All right. And but most of the batting I have, let me go in here.
Oh, we even get to see in the closet. Boy, your closet is way nicer and more organized than mine.
I have a attic space right there. That I keep some batting and stuff like that that's too big to have in here. I keep it there.
And so all of those fabric, is that just your stash that I'm seeing there?
That's just my stash.
And you keep it organized by color? Or how do you keep it organized?
And then I've got, I keep bins for like, I've got everything from when I finish a quilt, I cut it into small pieces. If it's bigger than 5 inches, then it goes into a box of chunks. And then I've got squares from 5 inches down to 2 inches. And then I've got strips and chunks, and then anything bigger than that gets organized over here.
Oh, that's lovely. Boy, you've got a system, don't you?
Well, I try.
Yeah, well, that's great.
It's hard to keep up. But
yeah. So what do you love about your space? Tell me what you love the most about your space.
I love that I can come up here and work and then close the door and leave it and come back and pick it back up.
That's awesome. And what would you change about your space?
I wish it was a little bigger.
Don't we all? We all wish our spaces, yeah.
And I'm in process of getting lighting, but yeah, I really didn't want to get a long arm because I thought it was going to take up too much space, and I did have to do some organizing, but I'm starting to get used to it and like it the way it is now.
Well, good. Well, tell us 3 things that you would recommend. They don't have to be quilting related, but something that you'd recommend to your bestie.
Well, I love my new dishwasher because, it frees me up to be able to get dishes done quicker and be able to come back up here.
All right.
And I love, I have an EnviroCloth that I love from Norwex. And
What is that? Do you have one nearby? 'Cause I don't know what the heck.
I do. Hang on. Grab it here.
Is it like a magic eraser?
No, it is there you go. Let me lay it out here. It is just a microfiber, and it has silver embedded in it. And in order for it to be microfiber, it has to be spliced so many times. And these are like that width of a hair spliced like 300 times, and that's the depth of the fibers in these cloths. But it keeps my long arm tracks real clean and keeps them rolling good. And I just keep everything wiped off, and it only takes water, so I don't have to worry about chemicals or anything.
Okay. Well, can you turn the camera around so we can see your lovely face?
All right. Okay.
There you are.
There.
And hold it with you. There you go.
Right.
Yeah. And so you had one more thing that you would recommend to your bestie. What's that one more thing?
Well, I really like this. Well, here it is. I've forgot what I told you.
Oh, I think you were talking about podcasts, but I want to know what that is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I like my podcast, but I also love this water bottle. You get it at a beauty shop supply store, and instead of it misting, it's a constant strain. Or not strain, constant light spray, very light mist spray. And I like that for my ironing board. And yeah, I like my podcast too, but I couldn't remember that.
Okay, well, that works too. That's great. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us, Diane. If people want to connect with you, where would they find you online?
They will find me at Threaded Treasures Long Arm Quilting on Facebook.
All right. Well, thank you, Diane. Thank you for spending some time with us, and we will see you in the clubhouse.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Diane. Thank you so much for letting us be nosy. So we do tape that earlier so that if there are any technical snafus, it won't throw us off track. So we got Diane to sit down with us a couple weeks ago and get that recorded. So I appreciate the time that you took, Diane, to show us your studio. You have a lovely room there to play, and thank you so much for doing that for us. So we're going to talk about my favorite things. But first, I want to talk about one of my favorite people because today is her birthday. Melanie, who is our lead quilt fairy here at Quilted Joy, she watches over all of our renters. She answers a lot of technical questions that come in over the phone. She helps folks who walk in to make their purchases, and she writes some of our blog posts about our renters and about what they've made. And she really celebrates those who come in and kind of nurtures them and makes them feel like they are the center of the universe. She is a wonderful person, and for those of you who know Melanie, you know how much of joy and happiness she brings here to the shop. So today is her birthday, so if you would, over in the comments, tell her happy birthday, Melanie! So she always laughs at her parents thought it was funny that she was born on April Fool's Day. But I can guarantee you she's no fool. She's a smart cookie. So that is one of my favorite people. And now let's talk about one of my favorite things. And this is something new that we just got in, and I've been super impressed by it. So this is bias binding. And you may have played with binding in the past, pre-made binding in the past, and it was like a cotton polyester blend, and it's some nasty stuff. But this is 100% cotton. This is made by Moda. This comes in all different colors, including grunge, which I don't know if you found Moda's grunge fabric yet, but it's great. And it's bias. It's 2¼ inches wide. And we have a calculator on our website if you go into any of the bias binding products where you can plug in the size of your quilt and it will spit out how much binding you need to get for your quilt top. So this is also a part of that 10% off with the coupon code SPRING10, all uppercase. And that 10% off is good through Friday, April the 3rd. So from now until Friday, April the 3rd, you can use that code and get all different bindings. These are all Moda, so they also coordinate. So this is a polka dot grunge cherry fabric, which is beautiful on a quilt. And so they've made this grunge binding that matches perfectly and is just coordinates, and it's all cotton, and it's some really fabulous stuff, and I think you'll like having that calculator too on the binding as well. So that is my favorite thing for right now is the cotton bias binding from Moda. And you'll find it's got Bella Solids, marble, and grunge. If you are a Moda fan, you probably have found those fabrics. So I did want to encourage you and ask you to leave a review on Google. There's a link in the description and on your screen. It's how other people find us. Like I said, we're a small company, all woman powered here in Louisville, Kentucky. So your review helps Google kind of lift us up in the search algorithm and helps them see that we are worthy of being served up to more folks. So I appreciate those of you who've left a review. I read every one of them personally, and it means a whole lot to me that you've taken the time to do that. So thank you. Okay, so I told you I was on a cruise, right? I told you I was on a cruise during the last Clubhouse because that one we had to pre-record and play with you because I was in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. And I had Clubhouse members join me on that cruise. And there were 2 of my patterns that we did as a class, that we pieced as a class, and then I had a sit-down machine quilting class for rulers on that cruise. So one of the folks who went on that cruise that I got to see in person was Polly. And Polly submitted her quilt top that she did on the cruise for our How Would You Quilt This segment here on the Clubhouse. So I'm really excited to kind of look at the great job that Polly did and also talk to you about how I would quilt that. So first I want to show you the quilt itself, and we have some different colorways for you. And by the way, I do have this as a downloadable PDF that you can purchase on the website if you like this pattern. I will say that there are 2 specialized tools that you will need. They're required to make this pattern. And that's the Deb Tucker Studio 180 V-Block and the Deb Tucker Studio 180 squared tool. So you have to have those for this pattern, but we do have the PDF pattern that you can download on the website if you're interested. And what's great about this pattern is that it's just made up of 2 units. Now this one is a version of it in a colorway. This one is called Moonhopper. And it uses a lot of bright colors and a stripy fabric. And this one you may have seen on the Love of Quilting show, is also in the Love of Quilting magazine. So that's the same pattern, different colorway. Here's a wall hanging version of it. Again, same pattern, different colorway, some different fabrics. And then I want to show you the one that Polly did on our cruise. So take a look at this one. Same pattern, different colorway, and this is, she did the bigger version on the cruise. In the pattern, there's a wall hanging size and a queen size, both included in the pattern, and she did the bigger size. So I'm gonna just zoom in here a little bit, and what my hope is that by kind of talking through how I think about a quilt, how I break down a quilt, it will help you to sort of also envision how the logical process is that I take, how my brain works, and then you can kind of morph that into how your brain works. So initially, I'm not really worried about how do I create a continuous path. It's more about how do I highlight the piecing and bring out what I'm interested in the piecing. And so what interested me first, what drew me first was this block here. And if you notice, this block here is this block here, right? So first what I want to do is I'm going to do it in this light blue area. I'll do it down here so it's a little easier to see. And I thought, if I can just kind of go up into a point and come back down and then echo that, that will fill that space. And then I'm going to head over in the ditch. And this is a half, there's a seam there. So that is a setting triangle on this square and a square unit. And so, okay, I thought, well, if I just go out and come back in, it'll return me to where I was. And then I'm going to travel down the ditch and repeat that. And travel down the ditch and do that little half one. And then here's my opportunity to dip into the center block, which is a pretty plain block. I'm just going to put a curl and come back out. And then I'm going to travel down the ditch, and I'm going to do that kind of leaf teardrop shape with an echo, travel down the ditch, make a smaller one. So I'm repeating and echoing to fill space. And so while I'm doing this, I just do a small one here, and this is my chance to drop in and put a curl on this side, and then go here to where I started. So that works for me. While I'm here, I'm kind of thinking about where are my magic portals? Where are the places where I could hop out and visit a different block or a different portion of the quilt? And so I just want to bring your attention that whenever I touch this intersection right here, or here, or here, or here, those are magic portal places where I can easily hop into the next section of my quilt. There's also, let me take those off, there's also a magic portal here, 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 and here. So I have places where I can hop off into different sections because I touch the center or the corner of the adjacent block. And in this case, I could jump off from this point into this V block and do something in that V block if I needed a path or a portal to travel. So I looked at this, and I'm keeping all of that in mind because I don't have a continuous path yet. I'm just trying to figure out what I like. And so I like that. And so I thought, okay, well, what happens if I put that in all the places? So that's kind of nice. I like that. And that's when I started thinking about, okay, what am I going to do for these areas here, these next areas here? And so when I zoom in, you'll see that these areas here, essentially, they're the same units, because this quilt only has 2 units, just that we did before. It's just they're a different colorway. And so I can repeat the same treatment in each of these spaces and use some repetition, which is always a nice design choice. Oh, and did you see when I hit this, I should have put my little curl here before I traveled on. And when I got to this one, I should have put my little curl there before I traveled on. So I can put that in all of those other ones too. So let's look at that. All right, so here's the same design. I'm just going to zoom in so that you can see a little bit. And by the way, I get asked this all the time. What are you drawing with? How are you doing this? It's just a paint program that I have on my Mac. This particular one is called Paintbrush. There are gobs of them out there. I use Paintbrush. It's a free program. And then I have a tablet. It's made by Wacom. I've had it for years. I think it's called a bamboo tablet, and it just turns my mouse into a pen shape so that it's easier for me to draw than using an actual mouse, but I just draw on the photos. So that's what it looks like on Polly's quilt with that same design tucked into all of those different blocks. Okay, so now I wanted to start thinking about what could I do in those V blocks. How could I make those kind of pop and be interesting? And so remember I talked about those magic portals and how here's a portal, here's a portal, here's a portal, here's a portal, and those are the places where I have the opportunity to jump into a different unit, a different portion of my block. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to jump in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do just a little curve out and a curve over and a curve down. And I like this shape because a lot of these fabrics in Polly's quilt from our cruise are all like starfish and shells and jellyfish and like ocean-y themes. And so this reminds me kind of a shell. So now I need to travel. So what I'm going to do, I landed back in that same place I started, and I'm just going to go up to the tip of that portion of the V-block, travel down that ditch. I'm going to travel down this ditch, ditch, and now I can go up this ditch and this ditch. So do you see by me traveling, I'm also starting to outline that secondary star. So I've landed at the top of this V-block, and maybe I should zoom in a little bit so that you can see. So I land at the top of that V-block, and I'm going to come down to here, curve up, curve over, curve down, go back up, ditch, 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 curve, over, curve, ditch, 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 there, curve over, go back to my ditch work. And so by the time I do all of these blocks, then this star will have naturally been ditched for me, just based on my path. And there I go, there's my end. So I've shown how I can do each block in one path. One of the things I want you to notice is now there are new magic portals open to me. So here's a portal, here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one. So any of these times where I reach the center of a patch next to it, the center of a unit next to it, those are my opportunities to hop into a different block or a different section of my quilt. So there's lots of portals now for me to hop into any place that I need to go to travel. All right, so let's look at that on Polly's quilt. I think I have to go to this one. All right, Polly, so there we go. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and we'll travel around. So there's what it looks like with those little shell shapes in those little V blocks. So I think that's kind of nice. And so when I start to think about, I'm going to zoom in. You know, we mentioned how these setting stars are going to get taken care of by themselves. And one of the things that I thought about was to just put a little bit of stitching in the center of that. When I reach this portal here, I can go from center to center to center to center and create like a little diamond in the middle of each of those stars. So let's take a look at that. So that's what it looks like now, Polly, with those setting stars and that diamond in the middle of all those setting stars. So as far as your outside border, Polly, there is a video tutorial that we did called Ocean Breeze, and I think Kelsey has the link for that so that you can see the video on how that is created. But I think the Ocean Breeze would be a lovely choice in that outside border. And then that skinny interior border, I just did a little wiggle, little wavy, little wiggle across the top. And of course I would do all four sides, but you get the idea. So there you go, Polly. That was my idea. And thank you so much for joining me on the cruise, and thank you for sharing your quilt with us. We did have another gal share the other class I taught, the Seaside Sunset. And if you were on the cruise with me, I would love to see your quilt top. So please post those over in the clubhouse. And if there is a quilt that you would like to know, how would I quilt this? You can submit it each month there in the Quilted Joy Clubhouse on Facebook. It's our private Facebook group. You do have to answer some questions to get in so that we know you're not, trying to sell us sunglasses or something. So we know you're a quilter to be let in. So do answer those questions. If you don't answer those questions, we won't let you in because we don't know that you're a quilter. So answer the questions. They're questions only quilters would know, but they're not hard questions. And then you can submit a picture of your quilt top, and if it's selected, then in a future episode, I may draw on it and tell you how I would quilt it if it were my quilt top. So there you go, Polly. I hope that you liked it. And if you're looking for that that pattern now for Caribbean Dreams. You can find that on the website, and it's a downloadable PDF. It does require 2 specialized tools, but it's just 2 units, and I think you'll enjoy it. All right, so we talked about the clubhouse, and we talked about how folks are in there and they're posting what they're working on, and I really love it when we get to see what's going on in your studio. So let's take a look at some of the show and tells that we've had in the clubhouse. So Deb, this was, I think she said it was her 3rd quilt ever on her long arm machine. I believe she said she has a Apicurus Lucy. I'm not sure if I'm dreaming that, but I think that's what she said she has. And take a look at what a great job Deb did with all of those little pebbles. I know that took a long time. When I do that many pebbles, my eyes start to water. It's a lot of small work, small detail work. So kudos to you, Deb. Really nice job. And Stephanie, I'm trying to remember all the stories about these because I love it when people post a story. And I believe that Stephanie said this was her mother did the applique and she did the quilting. And she is all these cute little Christmassy themed little blocks. And she did a wonderful job. There's beadboard, there's all different kinds of fillers, there's echoes. Really great job, Stephanie. Thank you for sharing it. And this is one that Amy did. Amy said that these were made from flour sacks. So it's a vintage quilt. And then she did an all over design for it. And don't you love all the violets and the lavenders and the purples and all the flowers from those flour sacks in there. And I have to brag about Rebecca. So Rebecca is one of our renters. And she came in and did this here in the shop. And it was her first time using rulers. Now, look at what an amazing job Rebecca did. I'm so impressed. You know that took a while, and she really knocked it out of the park. She did a great job. Kim posted this one. This is a beautiful, don't you love the contrast? I always love the 2-color quilts. So the red and the black is just such a strong, dramatic quilt. And take a look at how she did that ribbon candy in the borders, and then she even framed out each of the half square triangles here with ribbon candy so that it created, do you see this kind of secondary floating frame between the sashings? Nice job, Kim, really good job. Barbara shared this one. Look at all of these echoes. Oh my goodness, Barbara, this took you a long time. All of these lines, a very nice modern approach to these shapes. Really beautiful how they kind of bend the patchwork and connect it into one, and then some nice tight filler here as well. So don't you love how the batting kind of makes these shapes pop in the star that Barbara did. Great job. Okay, so I have to brag to you about Athena. So Athena submitted her quilt top to be selected for our how would you quilt that segment. And I selected, I can't remember when I did it. When was it? October? So she's fast, yeah. So I went through Athena's quilt and I said, okay, here's how I would quilt it for my quilt. And so Athena took those suggestions to heart and she made a few changes because of course I can't see like how big certain shapes are and you know how much quilting has to go in it to fill the type of batting that you're using, but gave her a path and then she ran with it and added things, and it's just amazing. I'm so proud of you, Athena. You did such a great job. So those were all of our show and tells for this month. And if you want to go in to see what I suggested for Athena's quilt and then get close-ups of what she did, it's all there in the Quilted Joy Clubhouse on Facebook. So do join us there in the Clubhouse. I encourage you, if you're on YouTube, to subscribe to this channel so you're notified every time a new video gets posted. And there's also a little heart icon, and I believe if you click that, it'll actually send you an email and alert you when we do go live so that you don't miss it. So I would love for you to review us on Google, and there's a link there in the description. Like I said, it helps other people find us, and if you would share this with someone, that's truly the best compliment that you can give us and the best thank you you can give us for the time that we've taken to put all this together for you. Now, next month's program will be on May the 3rd at 1 o'clock Eastern, and we're going to talk about quilting inside a curve, how to do the feathers inside a curve. We've talked about the outside. Now we're going to talk about the inside. And do join us on Facebook and there in the Clubhouse. We are also on Instagram. Many times on Instagram, you'll see some of the more personal life kind of shots. I put one of, I got to meet a sloth when we were in Honduras, I think we were on this cruise. And so there's a video in there of me holding a sloth on Instagram. And then, of course, we are on YouTube, and we have tutorials and great things to support you in your quilting journey there on YouTube. So thank you so much, and I will see you next month, the first Wednesday of the month at 1 o'clock Eastern here on Facebook as well as YouTube. Thanks. Bye-bye.